Welcome to our behind-the-scenes recording of our podcast. We're glad you're listening. If you want the full, edited, and shorter audio version, visit www.carnivoretheology.com. Welcome to Carnivore Theology, a podcast that answers questions about the Christian faith to help you grow from milk to meat into wise, skilled, world-changing followers of Jesus Christ. With theologian and pastor Chad Graham, author and pastor Al Dejeneaux, and me, your host, Steve Bastian. Today's question is, how should we respond to people when they wish us season's greetings or happy holidays? Okay, this is a special occasion. We have Chad with us. Al and I convinced him to come to the mall with us. We're at West Edmonton Mall, an old stomping ground for all three of us.
Can you say convinced when you have to use duct tape?
Um.
Okay, yeah, I told you to calm down. Calm down, and I will take it off, and I will let you have a Cinnabon. Okay?
I don't think this is the first time that we've brought someone in duct tape into this mall.
No, it's not actually. Hi, Kara, how you doing?
Chad, you've joined our old friend Jeremy in the ranks of being duct tape in West Edmonton Mall. So
isn't that nice?
I appreciate that when you get that off, you only tore half my face off.
Yeah, well, it'll all feel better once you get that cinnamon bun down you. I know that you completely rejected the idea of Christmas shopping. You seem to be violently against it for some reason.
I go Christmas shopping. I usually start on the 24th.
Mm-hmm.
And, the malls are less busy. There are some good deals around, and a lot of the shelves are empty, so you have less choice, therefore making it an easier process.
I completely. And maybe you do you celebrate the Eastern Orthodox version of this, where it actually goes on January 7th? I think
I actually have tried to convince my wife of that on the principle that we could get more and cheaper gifts, but she so far hasn't gone for it.
I couldn't agree more. It's a wonderful.
You start shopping Boxing Day, and it sounds actually like a good idea.
That's a great idea. Let's all convert.
Yeah, but one thing I've noticed a lot when shopping, even a few days ago, I bought a new set of Christmas lights, or 2 more strings to add to my collection, and the person at Home Depot mentioned, when I walked away, they said season's greetings, and being the person that I am, I right away responded as big and smiley situation as I can. Get it all out. I was like, "Merry Christmas," and walked out. And then it definitely made me think further of this possible topic of how should we respond to that? Is that the right way? Am I causing this person to go, one of those people, and actually kind of discrediting myself with that person if I met them again?
Yes, the answer is yes. Yes, you are. Okay, you are becoming one of those people.
All right, so Al, I want to hear from you first because I'm hoping that Chad will back me up like he sometimes does.
Okay.
And just before Al goes, I do have to say that, I'm okay with happy holidays. I'm morally opposed to season's greetings because I'm not a big fan of winter, and they're always talking about enjoy the season. What? Freezing my butt off? Anyway,
you live in the wrong part of Canada.
Okay.
I saw -3 this week. That's it.
Dude, don't even. If you post one
number this week too, with a 0 after it.
If he posts one more pictures of flowers in his front yard, I'm going to have to fly there and kill him.
Yeah.
And then you'll probably stay here forever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So
then you come to Calgary.
What I'm about to say is going to come across to some people nearly as much as what Scrooge said, which is, let them die and decrease the surplus population. In my mind, he's a Scotsman, so that works for me. Now,
it's not Scrooge.
We're going to start with
McGregor.
A Scrooge McDuck. That's right. Okay, listen. I'm going to start you off with a reality check. Now, gathering together as believers to celebrate an important historic event is a biblical thing, yes. Like many special days established by God in the Jewish calendar, or worshiping on Sundays in remembrance of Jesus' resurrection, absolutely. But a lot of Christians need to remember that Christmas is an invention of the church. It is not a biblical concept, nor is it a command. There is nowhere in the Bible that says we have to celebrate the birth of Jesus every year. Though we can find multiple places that tell us to remember his crucifixion and resurrection, we are not commanded to celebrate his birth. Okay? So, to all the high and mighties out there who go to people at Home Depot and actually turn around and say, Merry Christmas, if you believe that saying Merry Christmas is the epitome of the Christian life, I want to remind you about something, that false teachers were the ones who were imposing and advocating that the Christians need to remember the special feasts and the festivals to prove their Christianity and to gain points with God. Forcing a holy day on people and forcing that kind of thing on people, and all that goes along with that, in fact, is condemned in the Bible as pharisaical and wrong. Colossians 2:16-17. Therefore, let no one pass judgment on you in questions of food and drink, or with regard to festival, or new moon, or Sabbath. These are a shadow of things to come, but the substance belongs to Christ. And then he goes on later to describe the emphasis put on religious or aesthetic lifestyles, as in having to say Merry Christmas, saying that they have, quote unquote, an appearance of wisdom in promoting self-made religion, but are of no value in stopping the indulgence of the flesh. See, some people take Christmas so seriously that they actually idolize it. They turn it and all the things that go along with it into an idol, or shall I say multiple idols. And if you mess with them, like mess with Christmas trees or lights or cards or Christmas plays or nativity sets or Advent candles or calendars or even the phrase Merry Christmas, they lose their mind. But I want you to remember something. They are human inventions. Yes, they are nice. They are potentially helpful towards remembering the incarnation of Jesus as Emmanuel, which is critically important and a good and an important theological idea. It's a foundational belief for Christians. But these are all human inventions, and it can be distracting and even idolatrous if we start to worship them instead of God. Romans 14 says it is okay for some of us to have higher days than others, to value days higher than others, so it's okay to have the celebration. And that's not what we're talking about. It is fine to mark his birth, it is fine to have traditions, but we need to make sure that we are doing it to give honor and thanks to God, and not fighting over the nativity setup, whether we decorate or not, going into debt to buy presents, and whether or not we say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, or Season's Greetings, because that is completely distracting from what we're supposed to be doing. But here we are, talking about it anyway, so let's cover it.
All I can say is, ouch! I feel rebuked.
Yeah, as you should.
No.
Let me respond to that a little bit.
Help, Chad.
By saying that I do find myself somewhat conflicted. My wife loves Christmas, and I rather enjoy it. And I enjoy the beautiful traditions around it. And I like to live in a culture that shares assumptions with me, and that I can be a part of. But as I study through church history, it is amazing, and this is something that we should actually understand, is that which we celebrate as Christmas today is actually a creation of the Victorian society in the late 19th century, the late 1800s. Our traditions don't date back very much further than that. There was, of course, pagan traditions of mid-Christmas festivals, and there was some adaptation of that by the church in the early centuries. But it was mostly tuned into what we now know as the Advent schedule, which was a looking forward to Christ's return. In the 6th century, that was also compacted with Christ's first coming, and so that's why Advent seems to have some of the dual themes in it. But Christmas itself really wasn't in the way we have it today, practiced anything like this. There were some pagan rituals, and there was kind of some counter-pagan church stuff, and that was kind of it. The Christ Mass was done as a service of coming to take the Mass, take the Eucharist, in order to think about Christ in a special service. That was kind of the extent of the Christian tradition. Martin Luther, interestingly enough, loved Christmas, introduced some new Christian traditions. There's a legend that he was one of the first to decorate a tree, although nobody's sure about that. Calvin, on the other hand, was opposed to Christmas traditions, and the Puritans, in fact, hated them. They believed that they were the spawn of the devil. When they came into New England and had a Puritan government, Christmas was actually illegal. So from about 1600 to about the 1650s in Massachusetts, for example, Christmas was actually illegal, and you were required to work on Christmas. Until the 1850s, school in New England was attended on Christmas Day, and you were punished for skipping to celebrate Christmas. In fact, it wasn't until after the Civil War, when the U.S. government was seeking for a way to reunite the country, that they introduced what would become known as modern Christmas. And in 1870, it became a federal holiday. All of the commercialism that came into it came in after that, and liberal Christianity actually bought into this as a way to unify North and South. And what we know as liberalism of the 1930s was the heart and soul behind the Christmas holiday season. So what we're looking at today at Christmas is something created by the liberal church in order to accomplish national unity within the confines of Victorian ethics and beauty. And that was drawn, of course, from the British traditions around Christmas. And so these have united to create, in the 20th century, a consumeristic, secular holiday under the guise of Christian terms and liberal Christianity. So serious Christians have pretty much always rejected Christmas. It's very amazing. And so now we sit here today without the same kind of issues facing us, and we go to the store, and when someone were to say Merry Christmas to you there, if it was 1650, they'd be sent to jail.
See, you started your little speech there with, I like Christmas, my wife likes Christmas, and I like all the things about Christmas. And you ended it with, and every right-minded Christian hates Christmas.
No, I said throughout history.
Where are you at?
I'm saying throughout history, sober-minded Christians have rejected it. So I'm
right to the point where Chad accepted it, then it was fine.
Then it was fine.
Chad is outside of history. He's exempt.
What I do want to say is I disagree with the extremes. I think that the traditions help us. I'm in a church with a lot of young believers, and they don't know the nativity stories. And for us to go through the Advent season helps and encourages them and teaches them, and they like it and appreciate it. I think there's value in those kind of things if they're done well. But commercialized Christmas is not a Christian holiday. We're not actually defending a Christian holiday. We're defending a liberal agenda for the unification of the United States in the post-Civil War era when we're defending. And I mean, but I still like a lot of the stuff. So I don't honestly, when I answer this question, I don't even know how to answer the question. I thought about this, and I wouldn't want to make an absolute thing other than to say we're told to live at peace with everybody, and there's no point fighting people over a phrase. People say Happy Holidays, people say Merry Christmas. Let them. I want us to focus on Christ and the true meaning of the season.
Yeah, that's what everybody says. But really, now here's the thing, Chad. I agree with you. And in fact, I'm actually a big proponent of the liturgical calendar. I really like the idea of having the church elders of history set aside times and make sure that we are all understanding that we need to hit all the markers. We need to remember, Easter. We need to remember ancient rituals. We need to be able to have a whole season. I love the idea of a season of Advent where we've actually set aside time to wait, because it is completely countercultural to what we're doing now. It's a very good thing to do that. But at the same time, just so what you said, to get sucked into the consumerism leaves the devotional mindset behind, and you lose the idea of what you're getting into. And that's why to see someone militantly go after this idea of Merry Christmas, or to militantly go after this idea of if we don't have a Christmas tree in the church, then we're not a good church, then all of a sudden you completely miss the point. Now, let me answer Steve's question, okay? This is the right answer, and I know that Chad's been beating around the bush here for a little while, but let me answer the question, okay? If you want to get strictly biblical about how we are supposed to greet one another, then we should all be greeting one another with a kiss on the mouth, okay? That's how it's done. It's mentioned 5 times in the New Testament. It is mentioned to do that, not just once. So all these folks that are so militantly saying Merry Christmas should be equally arguing, especially these Christians that argue this, that we should be kissing one another on the mouth, because that's what the apostles did. Now, why are they not arguing that? The answer is because everybody knows it's cultural. The holy kiss is cultural. Well, here's the thing. So's Merry Christmas. Let me break this down for you, okay? Merry Christmas literally means, may you have a joyful, cheerful, and festive season around the time that the church has decided to gather together in Mass to celebrate the birth of Jesus. Therefore, happy holidays is pretty much exactly the same because it means have a happy series of days that have been made holy and special at this time of year. And season's greetings, which some people completely demonize, literally means I fondly and warmly salute you and greet you during this special time of year that has been set aside as special. It all means exactly the same thing. It's just me saying something nice to you at a special time of year. Period.
I think where the issue comes in though, is that our culture has sought to marginalize Christianity and disallow us in the public sphere.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to think of ways where we can use this time in order to be good testimonies. And in the right context, saying Merry Christmas is a way where we can just bring to mind what we celebrate at this time.
I don't know.
I don't tie it into the moral issue in the same way you're doing it, El, so much, just in the sense of communication. I think that we should be conscientious in general. When I say this, I don't mean churchanese, but we should be conscious of using Christianized language and not be afraid of it. To say I'm going to church on Sunday is appropriate. To say I'm celebrating Christmas is appropriate. I'm kind of giving, like, in a general conversational sense, I think it's a way in which we can bear witness with our lives as to who we are.
Yeah,
that's different from the fights. And
you're right. Don't be afraid of it, and you can totally embrace it. And if it means that much to you, and to be able to say Merry Christmas, and to definitely don't fall away from it. And in fact, I don't know, maybe we talk about civil disobedience, and if the Gap has actually commanded you not to say Merry Christmas, do we disobey? Maybe that's a topic. But I disagree with you on the idea of you can't convert anybody to Christianity by saying Merry Christmas. You can't make a pagan act like a Christian. They don't love Jesus. They don't see him as God. They don't want him in their face. And so they're going to use everything to distract themselves from him, even if that means Christmas traditions.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree.
They'll put up a turkey, they'll put up a tree, they'll put up presents, they'll talk about Christmas, 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 but there's no way that you're going to convert anybody to Christ by converting them to Christmas.
No, and that's, of course, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just talking about having a consistent lifestyle of witness, so that my actions, my language, my care for people, my personality and character all match up. And so I don't want to do the good works of Christianity, but hide the fact that it's tied to Christianity, so that they can't glorify my Father who is in heaven.
Right.
And I don't want to say the words without doing the good works, so that it's blasphemy, really, which is what it amounts to. You know what, in the Ten Commandments it says not to take the Lord's name in vain, and later you learn that the Israelites were taking the Lord's name in vain. It was primarily that they were living as pagans in pagan culture while still claiming the name of Yahweh.
Right.
And so, I mean, we could easily fall prey to that. Merry Christmas, I'm stealing this from your shelf,
Well, and that's my point, is that when Steve leaned over the counter there, grabbed the guy by the scruff of the neck, and screamed Merry Christmas into his face, that didn't show the love of Christ, right? It showed sort of that militant cultural change of saying, I'm a Christian and you can't oppose what I believe. But it wasn't a witness.
Jerry Falwell would be proud of Steve.
Who?
Jerry Falwell.
Oh, well, there we go. Now you're really... All right.
Well, I was thinking about that more myself. In that situation, a few times I have said kind of Merry Christmas, and I've kind of emphasized, Christmas when I respond back to people. But instead, and this is where I'm leaning towards it, is when I do respond Merry Christmas, I want to make sure that I have that eye contact and I smile and I'm try to be, the as warm as person as I'm built to be.
Yes, but that's not what people do. Okay, as nice as you, these people, and this is your story is something I've heard multiple times. I went to the store. Someone from behind the counter said, "Happy Holidays" or "Season's Greetings," and then I puffed up my shoulders. I pulled out my little button that says "Merry Christmas," and I looked at them in the eye, eyes wide, big grin on my face, and said, "Merry Christmas." Because I want to scare them.
A lot of the political correctness cultures come in. A lot of these companies actually mandate what their employees are permitted to say, and many of them, they actually dislike it and buck it. A true friendly Merry Christmas is actually usually quite quite acceptable to these folks. But my position on the thing is that I don't want as Christians for us to be cowed away from using our language, even if the world doesn't. I don't want to use it as a corrective on them necessarily, but as a blessing on them. And of course, you know, contextually, you don't want to be awkward about it. If I'm visiting the Jewish synagogue, if I'm invited to visit the Jewish synagogue, and I come in there and they ask me to wear the little hat and I put it on and I walk in there and they say, "This is our rabbi," and I say, "Oh, Rabbi Joseph, Merry Christmas." Maybe a little awkward. Don't think I'm probably going to do it in that context. Right?
But at the same time, let me say this: we shouldn't be afraid.
No, but
Be afraid.
But my Jewish neighbor, who's my friend, sure, why not? And meant in the right way, most of them will appreciate it. However, I do want to say that I think what we as believers need to advocate for is to get rid of this whole "keep Christ in Christmas" thing and to start advertising "keep the X in Xmas."
I agree.
Because we all know that the X is the Greek letter chi, which stands for Christ, and we can sneak it in without the pagans even knowing it.
Absolutely.
We can Xmas everywhere. We can get it in the schools. We can get it in the courtrooms. And if we would just advocate for that, we would ultimately take over the culture, and the fools wouldn't see it coming.
Yes, that's the opposite of what I said. Well done.
You know,
It's like you're not even listening at all over there.
You know, last year, I know I kept tabs of how many times people said like season greetings or happy holidays, and I responded Merry Christmas. And I remember 3 separate occasions last Christmas that people right away, as soon as I said Merry Christmas, they're like, "Merry Christmas to you too." The right response back, and
You want to.
they wanted to, and they waited for that opportunity that they felt it was safe, they weren't going to be reported or whatever.
Ooh.
I kind of felt like that was almost like the sign of the fish originally. You know, you draw the line in the sand, the half an arch, and the person repeated the other half of the arch to create the fish, and that you knew that you're talking to a fellow believer. And I almost felt like those moments were like that, and I kind of liked it.
Doesn't that make you sad though?
It does.
How afraid people are. Like people are just terrified. Like Chad, I want to throw this at you, but the ACLU in the States has made people scared, literally throughout North America, to even consider saying Merry Christmas, to put it up a tree, to singing Silent Night in their play at school. I mean, it is literally, people don't know what to do with themselves when it comes to this, and so they default to
they'll try and sue you. It's you know what? It's unfortunately, to me, it's ridiculous. We have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms that protects our freedom of expression, that protects our right to practice religion, but it's being systematically taken away through a series of lawsuits and games that are being played. And the ACLU is the American Civil Liberties Union. They stand for Civilly Crushing Christians, so it should be the ACCC. It seems to be all they do. I've never heard of them defending a Christian. You know, the other day I saw a big thing on the this is a different topic, but same principle. Our Olympic Committee in Canada has an LGBTQ thing now, and the World Olympic Committee has enshrined gay rights now into the Olympic Constitution, and they're all talking about protecting. How are they protecting Christian athletes who would espouse? They get kicked off their teams. They get fined. They get slammed down. So it's really, and I see that happening with the whole Christmas season. Except big business wants to keep our money flowing in that commercialized sense, and so they're really the only ones keeping it alive. If they went away, we could just go back to having a nice, quiet Christian reflection on our Savior, which might be all the best for the church.
I would have to admit the missing out on putting up the Christmas lights. You know, that's to me that's one of my favorite secular things I do.
Just make sure that your Christmas lights spell Merry Christmas as the Nativity in your front yard, and John 3:16 is flashing on your rooftop. Zzz,
You know,
zzz.
Chad, I'm missing the John 3:16. Yeah. That's my goal for next year.
That's an incarnation verse, right? For God so loved the world that He sent His only begotten Son. That's the Christmas message right there.
Well, and let's remember as Christians that we should not be surprised by any of this, that culture is trying to bleed away the meaning of our most important traditions and what's going on. I mean, they've been doing it with everything in our entire life. That the devil and Satan is a real and true combatant that is trying to make us afraid to stand up for Christ, that people in the world are playing for Team Satan, and they're going to try to do everything they can to stop us from sharing the message, from evangelizing the people, and to make us afraid. And this is the world that we're going to live. We were warned about this by Christ. We were warned about this by the Apostle Paul, all through the New Testament. I mean, even the prophets of old, when they stood up and they actually tried to speak for God, they got themselves in trouble. This is what happens. Yeah. We should not be afraid to do this. Yes, we try to be culturally sensitive. It is perfectly okay to enjoy lights and to enjoy the tree and say Merry Christmas, but we should not be surprised that the world is against us trying to keep the holy in holidays.
And I think that we should really keep in mind, because we haven't really emphasized, as we've talked about this, the meaning of Christmas from a Christian perspective is the incarnation of God into the world He created in the person of Jesus Christ, so that He could redeem His creation, and that is a cause for great joy. And we are awaiting the finality and the final fruition of this. But you read the opening chapters of the Gospels in Luke and in Matthew, it was a cause for celebration. The angels came and said, "Behold, there is born to you today in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord." And the shepherds went away rejoicing. And when Mary was told that she would have the Lord's baby, she pondered this in her heart. And we as believers need to spend some time now pondering and reflecting on the reality that we're rebels, living in sin, unlovely, unworthy, and God really could have just wiped us out, but instead He became one of us and lived with us and dwelled with us and shared with us so that He could redeem us. And now when we start talking about, do we say Happy Holidays or Merry Christmas, let's back up and just say, hold on a minute. Let's glorify Christ, and if we can do that in our witness with someone, great. It's not about some words, it's about our Savior.
Well, and in a devotional aspect, we have to remember also that Christmas was a time where God showed His humility, where God actually came as a human being. And let's go further. I mean, look at the example of Philippians 2. Be like Christ and be humble like Christ, who literally emptied Himself, right? Emptied Himself so that He would be able to come and to be one of us as a baby in a manger. That's why we look at the baby in the manger, and we should be in awe of the fact that God on high, the glorious one, who is infinitely perfect and infinitely worthy of all of our praise, would be willing to condescend to our level. More than that, condescend to be born, condescend to be a baby, condescend to be a poor baby, a poor adopted baby in the middle of nowhere, and to grow up in obscurity. I mean, he's not just our Savior, He's also our model for perfect humility. I mean, there's so much devotional weight to Christmas that when we start getting distracted with all the rest of that stuff, we really lose out on what our spirits need.
Isn't that an irony when you see that in the Gospels? A decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. What he is saying is, I am Caesar and I'm exerting my control over the world, even though he didn't have the whole world, it's the Roman world. He called it the world in his decree. And then Christ is born in a manger. And His announcement went to outcasts. The shepherds in their culture are outcasts. Went to an outcast group of people who are the only ones that knew.
Well, let's add to that.
I really like that, Chad.
Let's talk the wise men who come and they're looking for the king. They go to Jerusalem. They go talk to Herod. Yeah. They went to the right place, right? They went to the right place where they should have been, the holy city, standing before the great monarch, and they were in completely the wrong place because they guessed totally wrong as to what it would mean. They had to go to an obscure city. They had to go to a small place. They had to be led there miraculously just so they could find it.
Well, and you notice, too, that when they consulted with the teachers of the Scripture, they actually knew the answer. They said, oh, yeah, he's supposed to be born in Bethlehem and so on. They didn't go check it out. They didn't care. They said, here's the right theology. But as liberal Victorian romanticists, we prefer to have an enjoyable Hanukkah season now.
There you go. There's your pastoral application, right? A group of people who know the Bible, who know the story of Christmas, completely miss the point, and are more than happy to stay in their palace so they don't have to go visit Jesus in the manger.
That's sad.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap this up, guys. I really appreciate both of your views. I may not grab the next person by the scruff of their neck, as Al described, and not puff my shoulders up and look as intimidating as I can. Actually, I have more people actually asking if I'm auditioning for Santa with this beard lately, so it's actually slightly embarrassing.
I think it was the beating. I think it was the beating with the giant candy cane that put you over the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a bad Santa. Yeah. Anyways, just for listeners, the next few podcasts are going to be special Christmas editions. So it'll be a little shorter, a little more personal, and you won't have to put up with the three of us bickering. I'll be one at a time. So just so you know that that's coming, and to look forward to our special Christmas podcast. Not
And
seasons.
we'll be back to our regular format in the new year.
Absolutely.
What was that, Chad? Say that again.
Just say we'll be back to our regular format in the new year.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. This has been Carnivore Theology with Chad, Al, and Steve. Thank you for listening today as we discussed Christmas. To find out more about Carnivore Theology, or if you have any topics you want us to cover in upcoming episodes, let us know by visiting us on our website at www.carnivoretheology.com. If you like what we're doing, like us on Facebook, rate and subscribe to us on iTunes, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We encourage you to connect with your local biblical church, keep your eyes on the cross, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas and season's greetings.
And happy holidays! And Frere Noel! Am I right?